Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the law offices of Obermeyer in Philadelphia. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Bob Carullo with Aber Systems, Drew Hanlon, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, Alexa Scalzi, Topstack, and Kevin Kearns, Tri-State Training and Consulting. Let's see, Matthew, can you give us a rundown of who we have on the air today, please?
Yep, we have a great show coming. We're starting off with Marcus Allen, the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence, then Ken Knickerbocker, publisher of American Community Journals, Dr. Haytham Albizem, CEO of Monitor Health, and we're wrapping it up with Adina Silberstein, the founder and CEO of Queenie's Pets.
Excellent. Let's get to know Marcus Allen, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence. Marcus, what is Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence?
Big Brothers Big Sisters is the largest one-to-one mentoring program putting care and compassionate adults with at-risk kids here in the greater Philadelphia region. We serve about 3,500 kids in 4 counties here in greater Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, and then 3 counties in southern New Jersey.
And where you're from and how many brothers and sisters?
I'm the oldest of 3. I'm from Atlanta, was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Uh-huh. So what was going on with you when you were a kid, 8 to 14-ish?
I'd like to take it a little further back than that. I think most of the time about this doctor. When I was born, my mom was homeless, and she didn't have medical insurance, and this doctor told my mom that I would never play sports or walk properly because of a defect in one of my legs.
So your mom was homeless, and the doc told your mom that you would never be able to walk or be normal because you had a defect in one of your legs. Uh-huh. And what kind of sports career did you have?
So initially, as a young kid, not very much. I was a small, skinny, uncoordinated kid. But as I got older, around 10th grade, 11th grade, began to grow a couple inches, got a little bit more confident. I was in the gym a lot. I worked out a lot, lift weights. And before you know it, I got better in basketball. I grew to about 6'6", 6'7", earned an academic scholarship to go to HBCU, Payne College in Augusta, Georgia, and I ended up having a pretty good basketball career. Won the first championship in the school's history, was Division II Player of the Year, was asked to play for the Denver Nuggets, went there for a very, very short period of time before injury, and then I played professional basketball for about 6 years overseas.
So your mom, who was homeless, was told by a doc that you were never going to walk normally, and then you ended up having this rather illustrious and successful basketball career. I'm trying to figure out what that did to your CEOing this organization known as Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence.
Well, it gave me, this extra fire and motivation to go out and help those who couldn't help themselves. I tell people who want to get involved in the organization all the time, our kids need support. They need. I once was asked to speak to the Obama administration when it was my brother's keeper, and we found that the average person is born with genius mentality, and the reason that they don't reach that is because they hear no 150,000 times in their life.
Marcus, you told us that when you were 7 years old, you were living in the projects, and some bullies came along and stole some of your toys. Can you tell us that story and what happened?
Yes, my mom had just bought me some toys. These 2 bullies came, took my toys. I went to my mom and I told her, I said, Mom, these kids took my toys, and I'm expecting my mom to embrace me and make me feel better about it. And she did the opposite, and she told me if I didn't go out and get those toys that I wouldn't be able to come back in the house. So I went out, had to fight these 2 guys all day, and ended up getting my toys back. And that was the proudest day of my life, and my mom was proud of me as well.
What was the impact of your mom telling you that?
My mom was a strong woman. For me, it just taught me an important lesson that if you want something in life, you got to fight for it.
Shannon?
In the green room, you mentioned Annie and the impact that she had on your life. Can you tell our listening audience about her and what she did for you guys?
Well, this is a woman who I thought was my grandmother, but she wasn't my biological grandmother, but by all intents and purposes, she served that role. And she raised me and my brother when my mom didn't have the means to do so.
And what did Annie teach you that you still carry with you today?
She gave me my spirituality. We went to church every Sunday, and she always said that that our purpose in life was to serve others.
And
Alexa,
how
hold on for a second.
How
Alexa?
does Annie's role in your life relate to what you're doing? Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Well, it it's a life of service for me, and I know that as a leader, my job is to go out and serve others, whether it's the kids in our program or our staff and others who need me.
Marcus, how young were you when you had your first job?
So actually, my first job I considered at 12 years old when I was cutting hair, and someone told me they liked the way I cut my hair, and I started cutting hair and was making $2 per haircut when I was 12 years old.
What made you decide to do that? I mean, not a lot of 12-year-olds decide to start their own business.
Well, my mom it wasn't like we were getting allowance. My mom was we were low income, and so by cutting hair, I was able to contribute to the household, and so it made me feel good about myself and gave me a way to help my mom.
You trained some other people to cut hair, didn't you?
Yeah, I trained my brother, I trained my cousin, my best friend, and to this day, 2 of them have their own barbershops.
What's that have to do with who you are nowadays?
I think it has a lot to do. As a leader, I like being able to show people how to overcome.
Well, it shows that, 12 years old, you're teaching other kids to cut hair. Kevin?
Marcus, we've heard about Mom. We've heard about Annie. Who was your dad?
I didn't have a relationship with my dad, so I don't know a whole lot about him.
How did Dad's absence impact who you are today?
Initially, I didn't think it did, but as an adult, I had to come to grips with some of the anger and some of the negative feelings I had about not having a father, and so. But I feel like it's made me stronger.
Mm-hmm. Matthew,
tell us a little bit more about your mom.
So. My mom was the most prominent figure in my life. She was a strong woman. She was someone who, no matter how tough times got, she never made excuses. She never felt sorry for herself. And so I think my mom really taught me resilience. She really taught me, and not only resilience, but no matter what happens, you still should be nice and care for other people.
Kevin?
Earlier in the green room, you also mentioned how diversity and inclusion was important to you. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Yeah, why is that so important? What happened to you as a kid?
I just remember, growing up in a small southern town, how racist and segregated it was. And
give us a specific example.
I'll give you one I didn't give you before. One of my best friends growing up, his name was Mark Reese. He was killed because he dated a white girl. And so the uncle and brothers who killed him, they ran him over the truck, beat him with a bat. The police didn't arrest him. They allowed him to leave the town to never come back. And so that left an impression on me about racism.
Marcus, you've described yourself first as a small, skinny, uncoordinated kid who turned into a 6'6", 6'7", very skilled basketball player. Do you remember that moment when you kind of transformed?
Well, I don't know if I turned into a very skilled basketball player, but I was a very athletic basketball player. I remember people coming to me and telling me that you're pretty good at this, and so it changed my perspective about who I was, and it gave me confidence that I can actually do something that a doctor told me I would never be able to do.
And what does that transformation from kind of the skinny, uncoordinated kid to the more successful athlete have to do with who you are today and how you lead your organization?
I believe in the power of potential. Our biggest thing is defending the potential of kids, and I believe that every person has a right to, achieve whatever vision and dream they have for themselves, and no one should tell them no.
Marcus, you mentioned in the green room as well that, when you were 6, you decided to name yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, my mom, when I was born, named me Leonard Marcus Allen. Leonard because of it in the Bible, it stood for intelligence, and Marcus because it was a warrior. And I never liked the name Leonard, even when I was in kindergarten. So I stopped using that name and only went by Marcus. So that's some secrets I'm allowing to come
Marcus,
out here.
just going back to what Annie taught you, you mentioned spirituality a few times earlier. What does spirituality mean to you?
Everything. It gives me a sense of purpose. If I didn't have it, I would be rudderless.
Wait. What are you talking about, a sense of purpose and rudderless and stuff?
Well, I think, my belief is that when you believe in a higher power, something bigger and better than yourself, then no matter what storm you're in, you have something to hold on to. You're anchored. And that's really led me in my career.
Do you have time to be a big brother today?
You always have time to be a big brother. I'm a big brother now to a young kid, Nasir. In order to be a big brother, you don't have to change your life to change the life of a child. It's 5 hours a month, 2 times a month for 12 months.
And tell me, what do you tell Nasir? Was that
Nasir?
Nasir. So tell me, what do you tell Nasir? How do you help Nasir? What do you do?
I listen to Nasir. I'm not here to tell him. He tells me, and I listen, and then I chime in wherever there's a gap.
So you believe the spirituality is the higher purpose. You're actually serving a higher purpose, not only being the CEO of this organization, but actually being a big brother yourself.
Yes.
What do you mean, yes?
I believe that I'm fulfilling what God put me here to do.
What do you mean what God put you here to do? What are you talking about?
Well, there's no higher purpose, I believe, in life than to help someone else.
What's the website address of this organization, Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence?
Yes, independencebigs.org.
Let me have that one more time.
Independencebigs, plural.org.
We've been speaking with Marcus Allen, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Back in a moment, right after this break. You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Ken Knickerbocker, who's the publisher of American Community Journals. Ken, what is American Community Journals?
We publish a string of suburban Philadelphia business journals.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about where you're from originally and how many brothers and sisters.
I grew up here in the Philadelphia suburbs, one of 4 children, the second oldest in the family.
All righty. And what was going on with you 8 to 14?
Well, it was a time of great political upheaval in the United States, and my parents were very tuned into that. They took us down to Washington when Kennedy was shot. I met Bobby Kennedy when I was younger. Lots of dinner time conversations, and that would just dynamic and free exchange of ideas.
Free exchange of ideas. Drew, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you told us in the green room your mom and dad both went back to school when they were 40. Mm-hmm. What was the impact of that?
It was an example to me of how important education is, how important it is to always be learning, as well as you can make a difference in your life, whatever stage you're in.
And why was it so important to your parents to be tuned into current events?
It was just part of the nature. It was if you wanted to be a citizen, you had to know what was going on.
And how did that impact what you're doing today?
It has everything to do with it, because we want to be able to alert people to what's going on outside of the ordinary, right? Everybody's aware of the turmoil and the drawing. We want to be able to point to stories that are positive and upbeat that people may not be aware of.
You told us earlier your parents also taught you to go against the grain a little bit. What's that about, and how young were you when you were going against the grain?
From the time I was young, I was going against the grain. I remember in high school wearing a support Nixon or support the president button to school, and 3 years later I was a McGovern guy, and so it's always been finding my own path.
How did that finding your own path play with the other kids?
Not very well. I was always a nerd, always kind of off on my own. I was likable, but just had to find eventually get comfortable with being different from everybody else.
And how does that search to be comfortable with people, how does that lead to what you're doing today?
Well, eventually I found a path that no one else had that everybody else needed, and that was sharing positive, upbeat stories on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, excellent, Matthew. Alexa.
And Ken, you mentioned your granddaughter and how that kind of played out. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, throughout my life it was always kind of a negative outlook, and then she was born very premature, 1 pound 1 ounce, and I saw that she was able to fight through it and survive, and what the medical care was able to bring to her, and it just opened up a new world to me that there are more positive things, more upbeat things happening than there are negative, and that we're very fortunate to be alive at this day and age.
Kevin?
Ken, how young were you when you began to work?
I was 14.
And what were you doing?
I was washing dishes in a small community diner.
So how were you different from the other kids working?
I just had no problem with working hard. I would get there, I would show up on time, I would work harder than anybody else, and that was pretty much throughout my career, is that I worked harder.
And how does that relate to who you are today?
If you want to accomplish what you want to accomplish, you've got to put those hours in. And there's the balance between working hard and smart, but you still have to work hard.
Robert?
In your youth, what did you learn about the two sides of journalism?
Is that I could do the middle pretty well, and that's really where we want to be today, is that on both ends there's radicals, but in the middle there's usually is where the truth is and where the reality is, and I wanted to be in that middle, and the problem was the middle wasn't a safe place to be. Well, it is now, because the media is taking us all into our corners, and so I'm all about the middle. The middle is, I want anybody, no matter where they are on the political spectrum, to be able to come and have a comfortable, friendly experience on one of my platforms.
Shannon?
Ken, tell us about a time someone didn't appreciate who you were when you were a kid.
Why are you smiling with that question? How young were you? And give us an example of somebody that didn't appreciate you when you were a kid. That rings pretty true to you, doesn't it?
It was my first grade teacher, and she insisted on being my second grade teacher too. And so it was that it was just, we were oil and water together. She saw something in me. She accused me of something that never happened, and we just never got back together.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel like I was an outsider, that I wasn't...
and how does that affect what you're doing today?
That I want to be part of that group. I want to be an insider, and I want to be somebody that pulls people together instead of divide.
Oh, give me that again. So as a kid, you felt what? And how's that affecting you nowadays?
I always felt like I was the outsider, that I had this perspective that the truth is in the middle, but I could never work it to bring people together. And then what my platform does is bring people together. It allows, no matter where you are on the spectrum, to come and have a good reading experience.
But it's really important to you that it's the truth, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Why is the truth so important to you? Where's that coming from?
As the internet came along and I got a chance to see more and more stories on more and more newspapers, I started to see that there was a perspective out there that while it looked like there were bad things happening, in reality, behind the scenes, there were great things happening, and there's never been a better time to be alive than right here, right now. And I want to be able to tell that story. I want to be the one that reminds people on a daily basis how lucky we are.
Ken, you seem to me to have a relentless positivity. Is that fair?
It developed late in life. Yeah.
Where's it come from?
It came from reading, incessant reading. It came from my granddaughter. It came from just looking at how fortunate we are.
What do you mean, how fortunate we are? What are you talking about? There's a lot of rotten stuff in the news.
Oh, there is. And there's real credible issues that we need to focus on and try to resolve. But at the same time, we're healthier, we live longer, we have more amenities. Everything's better than it used to be. None of us would trade places with our grandparents.
Kevin, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I get where you're coming from. In my experiences, people want to rag on urban areas. However, I've been in those urban areas. I've lived there. I work there. And everybody just wants to focus on the negative. And it's nice to see someone like you is bringing out the positive light wherever it may be.
Mm-hmm. Alexa, what are you thinking?
You've mentioned dinner time conversation. I would love to know a little bit more about, what those conversations look like.
My father was conservative. My mother was liberal, but it was like it didn't matter. It was just free expression, back and forth, kind of what's happening.
How do you help facilitate those conversations today?
I can go right between all angles, all sides, and kind of bring the people together and find solutions that kind of take 1 + 1 and equaling 3, 4, and 5.
But doesn't it take a lot more work to do that rather than just pick up a press release and publish it?
It does, but you accomplish wonderful things.
That goes back to your being the busboy that worked harder than everybody else, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's who you are. You really work hard to get the truth.
Well, it takes that extra effort behind the scenes, those extra phone calls, bringing people together, finding that common ground, and then pushing them towards a specific
I'm going to reject
goal.
your search for the truth. He's searching for the community. How young were you when you were looking for the community, when you were finding a community?
Well, that's rather consistent. Didn't you tell us you were also of a different religion and it made you feel different as well?
I did, and I've always wanted to be in that community, as you call it, and to pull people together, and I'm pretty good at pulling people together, but it wasn't until late in life. I mean, I was 59 when I started this business, and I was always searching for that vehicle. I tried politics and different things, and once I found this vehicle, I found a way to bring not just a few people together, but thousands of people together on a day-to-day basis.
Kevin?
So, just like I grew up in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, so did you. And you can always stand out because everybody knows everybody. So how are you standing out now with what you're doing?
I'm the voice in the middle. I'm the one reminding people on a day-to-day basis how fortunate we are, what great things are happening here in the Delaware Valley. And while there's all sorts of chaos happening on the fringe, none of us have had it better than we have it now.
Well, what's the website address for this organization known as the American Community Journals?
Our main website is vista.today.
Let me have that one more time.
Vista.today.
We've been speaking with Ken Knickerbocker, who's the publisher of American Community Journals, the website being vista.today. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. And we will be back in a moment right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Dr. Haytham Albizem, MD, CEO of Monitor Health. Dr. Albizem, where are you from originally?
Syria.
And how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
3 brothers, 1 sister. I'm the oldest.
And how young were you when you came to the United States?
12.
You came here when
24.
You were 24. And how young were you when you started thinking about when you wanted to come to the United States? 12 years old. Alexa.
Haytham, what kinds of things did you do for fun when you were growing up?
Swimming and doing experiment in my private lab at home.
How old were you when you started your private lab?
12.
And what kinds of things were you doing?
Chemical experiments on different type and mechanics, magnetic fields, electronics, basic things.
Didn't you also tell us you had some interest in astronomy as well?
Yes.
Sun, the moon, the stars?
Yes, I saw a book in a bookstore about the stars, and it was fascinating to me. And I bought the book and became more involved in science through that book.
So you got involved with the sciences, and you mentioned that your dad had brought home some sort of a lab for you when you were a kid, when you were 7 or 8 years old from Germany. So it was pretty evident your parents really wanted to support your interest in science, and you were experimenting. And Drew, where do you want to go?
Yeah, I just want to ask about swimming, kind of being a scientist on one side and then being a competitive swimmer on the other side. What was that like?
It's a curiosity. I saw, and while I was in in a swimming pool, seeing other kids as a part of the team, and I was just.
Did you say you were fascinated with the technique behind swimming?
Yes, I was.
And what was it that you were fascinated with?
I just learned it from them by observing them. I tried to imitate what they're doing, and I was successful. My first competition, I took the 2nd place.
So you were able to basically take your scientific approach to a competitive sport?
Yes.
And did you enjoy the competitive side of swimming?
Yes, absolutely.
And so how has being a competitive swimmer inspired you as a leader?
Everything.
What do you mean?
it gave me the discipline. It gave me the right attitude. It gave me the
Do you ever think back, like when you're faced with a tough decision at the office? Do you ever think back about those workouts?
Yes, if I fail, I keep trying. This is the bottom of the game.
And I just have to ask about astronomy. Like, what was it about the stars that really inspired you?
I am fascinated by the stars.
Why, though? Like, what were you fascinated
When
with?
you look at the stars, it's something very beautiful.
Didn't you mention to me at the break that your favorite time of the day is when you can turn out the lights in your apartment in the city and look at the sky?
Yes, and still.
So you still have a love?
Yes, absolutely.
Matthew?
Haytham, are you more like your mom or your dad?
Mom.
How come you're more like your mom?
She was very close to me all the time. My dad was in and out.
What is it about your mom that is more like you?
Personality, closeness.
How about the drive to succeed? Does that come from your mom?
It is.
So you told us before that you were like first in your class in school growing up in Syria. So should she make you crack the books?
Actually, I don't remember. She did it very early age, but she never, I excelled by myself after that.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of drive and ambition. It showed up in the swimming. And Shannon.
Haytham, what effect did the Syrian regime have on your career?
It affected me in a positive way by deterring me from. They wanted me to be involved with killing people through science, and I decided to take the medicine part, which is healing people, try to make them better.
Tell us more about that.
I was picked up by the Syrian regime at the time of graduation to go into private schools related to science and physics, nuclear physics. They were building the first nuclear factory. And when I went there, I learned that it is only directed to kill people. And I decided to take the opposite direction. I want to heal people. I wanted to get them better. And it was against my nature to. That's why I decided to be a doctor.
Kevin?
Although I never dreamed of being a doctor.
Kevin?
Dr. Albizem, I'm hearing there was a curiosity with science, which then later led to a career, and also a drive to just do good in this world. How does that impact you today?
In every positive, all the success I achieved, I'm giving it back to the community and locally and internationally.
How are you giving back to the community locally and internationally? What are you talking about?
Okay, on several levels. I'm interventional cardiologist, 5 board certification four in cardiology, 1 in internal medicine. Every 3 months I go to a different country. I teach the local doctors new skills, new techniques, which is not written in the books. I improve their, how to care for the patients. And we recently started a program for poor people, giving them free medication sponsored privately by me and my partner. To give all the patients who cannot afford the medicine for diabetes and hypertension. And that program we started now in Pakistan for 110 million people. And for the refugees, Syrians, because I'm born in Syria, we are going to implement it all over the world. Basically, anybody who needs any blood pressure medication, diabetic medication, will provide it for them free if they cannot afford it.
Where's the money coming from to support this program?
From God.
Mm-hmm. and where else?
Well, I have several companies in cardiology. I have, real estate. I have a technology company. For my recent visit also to Pakistan, I came back 2-3 weeks ago. We're gonna build manufacturing at a lower cost for the medications can be afforded by people. I want to give you an example.
Wait. So where's the money coming from to supply these medicines?
Personal
from you?
Yes, me and my partner.
Why don't you go buy a fancier car or a bigger house or something like that?
I already do. I already have that.
So why are you spending your time doing this stuff? Why don't you go like on vacation all the time or something?
If I want to, I go on vacation.
I know, but why aren't you on vacation? Why are you going to these different countries and making sure that they have medicine and teaching surgical techniques, doctor techniques?
I have a personal responsibilities to give back to the community.
Where's that come from? Where's that coming from? That personal responsibility.
Like Marcus said, spiritual. I want to give back to the people. When I die, I'm not going to take anything back with me. I mean, I'm going to just be.
What do you mean spiritual? You're a cardiologist. You're a medical doctor. What are you talking about spiritual?
Well, medical doctors means try to help people, heal people, improve their quality of living. And that's what I do.
Marcus, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking above and beyond the science piece, you sound like a social engineer. Like you really want to design things to help people. Like talk a little bit about like how your life has led you to just solving problems rather than just being a doctor.
Well, I started with nothing. Okay, when I came to the U.S., I have just $500 in my pocket. Okay, as a doctor, when I started, the program starts every July 1st. Okay, and as a doctor, I have to be a pizza delivery person, and I am a doctor. But I did it, and I grew up in that, and now I have everything I own. It's with I believe it's with God helps, and I want to give back to the community locally and internationally. I have no differentiation between race or gender or religion or I want to give back as much as I can. Okay.
What's the next question, Marcus?
My last question would be, it sounds like spirituality is important to you. Like when you were growing up in Syria, was that a part of growing up?
No, actually, that's a good question. It was actually. No, it was not. Both my parents was against anything religious because they were afraid.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have to get you back from. We're going to run out of time here. What's the website address for Monitor Health?
MonitorHealth.net.
We've been speaking with Dr. Haytham Albizem, MD, CEO of Monitor Health here on Executive Leaders Radio. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, and we'd like to introduce Adina Silberstein, founder and CEO of Queenie's Pets. Adina, what is Queenie's Pets?
Queenie's Pets makes the lives of pets and their humans better as professional dog walkers and pet sitters.
Mm-hmm. And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from upstate New York and then Philadelphia at age 4.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 sisters. One is biological, and one was adopted when we were 16 years old.
And tell me a little bit about what was going on in your childhood. What was happening there?
In my childhood, my folks divorced when I was 6 years old, and we grew up, basically we were Jewish and poor, and I was in a private school that was very wealthy. I was on a scholarship, and the school was not ideal for me. And eventually, because of the divorce and a few other reasons, I lost my scholarship, left the school, and went to Philadelphia Public Schools.
Drew, where do you want to go?
Adina, your adopted sister was actually your friend first. Do you remember when you met Meg?
Absolutely. I remember it very clearly. It was the first week of 9th grade, and she sat behind me in a meeting for the high school field hockey team.
And what do you remember about Meg?
I just remember thinking she was way cooler than she had been described to me by her biological brother.
And didn't you describe you and Meg as slight outcasts?
We were not outcasts. We were just coming from different places coming into a public school. So we both were coming from all-white private schools, and it put us in a unique place.
And how did the relationship with Meg help you in that situation?
She was my ride or die. We were everything. She was my only friend at first, other than my big sister, who led the way in coolness.
Mm-hmm. Adina? Excuse me, Alexa.
How young were you when you had your first pet?
Oh, gosh, before I was born. The day I was brought home from the hospital, the first Super 8 video of my dad carrying me in, covered in 8 blankets during a snowstorm, is our 90-pound German Shepherd jumping up on her hind legs and licking my face.
And how do you think pets influence your life today?
They influence absolutely every moment of my life. Even talking about it makes me feel very emotional. They're everything to me, and I can't exist without them.
Mm-hmm. Robert?
Adina, in the green room, you told us you were in Denmark when you were 16. What did you take from that experience that applies to your business today?
I learned that despite being different than everyone else, I could figure out a way to fit in, and I could figure different people out. I could navigate people's differences and my own differences in order to create very solid relationships and a way to belong.
Well, actually, you mentioned that mom and dad were divorced when you were 6, but that didn't make you unhappy in your way. What was that all about?
I was not unhappy. Prior to my parents' divorce, I didn't really get to spend much time with my dad. And after the divorce, there was visitation. It was part of the schedule.
And you told us that you currently have a relationship with both of your parents that may not have happened without the divorce.
Absolutely, because as two separate entities, if you will, I was able to relate to them completely differently and separately. And
so you have this intuitive ability to read people, to read energy.
Yes, yeah? I definitely do.
What's that have to do with the success of this business that you're running?
Well, I think in essence, when it comes down to it, I'm in sales, and when you can figure people out, learn what they need, and speak right to their needs, and understand them, and have the true emotional intelligence, you create lasting relationships that are what's necessary in a high-touch personal service business.
So is there any difference between being able to read people and being able to read the animals?
Great question. Yes, because we have to mitigate the difference between what the humans think their pets want versus what the pets actually are expressing through their body language that they want and need.
What are you talking about?
Dogs, especially dogs and cats, but especially dogs, have an extremely unique way of expressing fear, joy, and everything in between. And we have to learn to understand what they're telling us, whereas humans can say, I feel sad or I feel scared. And the dogs have to act in a certain way.
You really have an intuitive ability. It's one of the reasons you've been successful with this business, is because you really understand how to read the animals.
I think so. Animals and people, yes.
Shannon.
Adina, in the green room, you mentioned your friend Meg spent a lot of time at your house. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Meg's biological family, there were problems, and she used to run away from home, in essence, to our house. We only lived about a mile apart, and she would spend more and more time with us until the point where we decided it made the most sense that she become officially part of our family.
It sounds like your mom really made your home a safe space. How does that relate to what you're doing at Queenie's Pets today?
Yeah, my mom has the hugest heart of anybody I've ever met, and she always wanted everyone to know that they were safe in our home and that all of our animals were also safe in our home. And so animals do represent safety and comfort and joy to me. And what's most important in my business is that we operate as a force-free, fear-free, and stress-free caregiving company. And so passing that along, no animal will ever be forced to do anything that they don't want to do when they're under our care.
Wow. Kevin?
So in your life, you've pointed out that your mom was a positive influence. Your parents' divorce turned out to be a positive thing as well. But at the same time, you went through a lot of adversity with Meg moving in while you lived in Denmark. You were also removed from the school and put into a completely new environment. How do these types of things impact who you are today?
I think that being thrown into new situations is the greatest challenge and ends up being our greatest reward. My phone lock screen says everything you want is on the other side of fear. So everything that's scary, we take, we harness, and we empower ourselves through it.
Does that have anything to do with your putting yourself in Denmark when you were a kid?
Probably. When I was very bored in high school, and I was fascinated with a world that was different than my own, and I wanted to get out and see it. And so that's what I did.
It took a lot of guts, though, didn't it?
It did.
What'd you learn about yourself?
I learned that even though I was different, I could use that to my benefit, and I could make myself the most interesting person in the room if I wanted to. I could learn new things, learn a new language, and make friends, even though I was a complete outsider. And it taught me everything. It was amazing.
Matthew?
Yeah, you said earlier that your big sister led the way in coolness. Tell me about your big sister.
My big sister Heidi she's always been the coolest person. When I came into high school, I wanted to be friends with all of her friends. She was very popular, well-liked, and well-liked by teachers. And so I rode her coattails, I'm not going to lie. And no one expected any of the daughters of two social workers to end up in business, and all three of us are in the business realm today.
It's very interesting to me that you say she led the way in coolness and Meg was cooler than you thought, and you've transformed yourself into someone who can be the most interesting in the room. You just told us. What color is your hair for people on the radio?
My hair is a bluish turquoise.
And you got on some funky, cool yellow earrings going too, right? You don't look like necessarily all the CEOs. Are you cool?
But of course,
I
also have birds
right?
on my dress.
You do?
Yeah.
So what does that coolness have to do with the way you relate to your customers and what you're doing today?
So that's a great question. I made a decision that I wanted to be a CEO, and I wanted to take charge in the business community, but I didn't want to look like everyone else, and I wanted to be strong and successful in a different and new way. So I work in a very cottage industry. Some people laugh and say, oh, that's so cute when I tell them what I do, but now I do it with gusto and verve, and I have blue hair, and I still stand on a stage and lead the way, and am able to wear a dress with birds on it and still be taken seriously.
Adina, the door that Matthew just opened up for you, why does that make you feel good?
I love to know that I can be different, and I can be seen by those who are also different and know that they can still be successful. I love going into Philadelphia public schools and telling them I'm a product of Philadelphia public schools and I am successful. And I love that I did not have a standard major in college, and I'm able to say, you don't have to toe the line. You can do your own thing, and you can come out really, really successful on the other side.
What's the website address for this organization known as Queenie's Pets?
We are queeniespets.com.
How do you spell that? QUEENIESPETS.com. We've been speaking with Adina Silberstein, founder and CEO of Queenie's Pets, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Matthew, could you give us a rundown on who else we've had on the air today, please?
Sure can. We started off with Marcus Allen, the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence. We had Ken Knickerbocker, the publisher of American Community Journals. Dr. Haytham Albizem, who is the CEO of Monitor Health, and the oh-so-cool Adina Silberstein, founder and CEO of Queenie's Pets, wrapped it up.
I'd like to thank my co-hosts, including Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Bob Carullo, Sabre Systems, Drew Hanlon, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, Alexa Scalzi, Topstack, and Kevin Kearns, Tri-State Training and Consulting, for giving me a hand, structuring the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an entertaining and educational show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and do have a nice day. Bye-bye.